we're live. That was
We
quick.
are live. I told you I was pushing the button. Hello, everyone. See,
Hello,
this is
everybody.
it's going to be fun. It's going to be amazing. And we are going to see what happens. Really, we are here to talk about building communities.
Yep.
And there's no better lead in to this than our community, Marisa. Like, it's been a shit show of a day for me, and I am deeply reliant on all of these people because I haven't had access to my office. I
That's
had to have
right.
somebody record the group call for me, and now I'm gonna have you, do this thing because community, baby. All right. So, do you have slides? I neglected to ask. No?
I
Or are
did,
you
and
talking?
then I was like, why slide when we can, just look at our faces? And honestly, let's just go into it. Let's just dive in because you know what? You mentioned this already. You're having a hell of a day. And what happens when you have a hell of a day, right? You have two
Mhm.
choices. You're in it yourself and you got to figure everything else out, or you turn to your community, whether your community is your family, whether you're, friends, your colleagues. Like, I fully firmly believe that I do it with more than a little help from my friends, as the song goes. I've always said that since we started, especially organizing large scale events with Etsy 12 years ago, or 10 years ago. I don't even know. Some years ago. What are we in? 2023? Yeah. So 11 years ago, when we started doing these events, I said, we can't do this alone. Because if one person tries to go out there and build momentum for anything, it is slow, it is sluggish, it's painful, and you burn out really quick. So let's start from there. Let's talk about this because I think you had originally said, what makes a good community, what makes a toxic community, what, how do we spot things? Let's just dive in and chit chat.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
I have so many people who really, and they're struggling with the in-person aspect and the internet aspect, and I think it's related, but I definitely have so many people who are just at a loss with how to build something structurally functional.
Yeah.
And they're in, small towns, or they don't have the ability to, go someplace else and start fresh, or they have no ability to reinvent themselves, but they still need a community. And
Yeah.
so we got to build something.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
I get that. I mean, when I first started going online, it was an interesting, I want to say this. I've been online since, like, 1997-ish is when all of a sudden I was like, what are these chat rooms? What are forums? All this BB, all the things. Like, I discovered community in a way that only a nerdy little fat kid who was socially awkward could do, right? It was like, I know I don't really fit in wherever I am right now in the middle of, Canada, northern Canada, not a major metropolis. I was like, how do I find friends that can maybe see past the fact that my eyes cross or that they look over everywhere else, or I don't do all the stereotypical things that we say for making connection? But I wanted it. I wanted connection just like everybody else. So I went online and I built incredible friendships that I still have. They are still in my sphere 20 plus years later, of a whole bunch of weird kids that went online. But what I saw was that there was this fierce determination to not only build connection, but to keep those connections and to have a point of being together in that community. And now when I fast forward and I go, okay, it's 20 years later, I see that now we're coming out on the other side of like, the panorama, the panini, if you will. And we were forced into isolation. We were forced into exclusion. And you think that would have made us all just automatically know how to do online communities. Well, no.
No, and everything is worse now.
Well, and I think all of these kind of old rules that happened in society still exist. So, take for example, if people don't know, I have a virtual world that Briar gets to come play in, and it literally is a virtual world. We have tables and chairs, and we sit our little avatar butts down, and we connect with each other. I built a new room, and so we started off in all one big long table, or 17 seats around one big huge table. And I thought, you know what? We should have a room that has a couple different tables, and then you can place things around, you can move things around. And everyone's stressed about the new room because there was tables and chairs, and who do I sit with? And what if I sit at this one table and the other person thinks that I'm ignoring them, or I don't want to sit? We're all in the same virtual space, but the same rules that we grew up with, this hierarchy, these like, you got to sit with so and so, otherwise they're going to get mad at you. All of those things are still playing around in our heads,
still there,
even 20, 30 years later after we learned them. Right. And so all of this gets carried forward. There's competition. There's, this worry that if someone else shines brighter than us, they're going to take the community away. And all of this kind of stuff keeps playing as we are still being adults and doing this. And it's not just online communities, it's in our own neighborhoods. We have, these hierarchies, these classes that still exist that really prevent us from creating really, really nourishing, thriving communities. And I think this is an interesting exploration that you're doing in your work, and that I'm doing in my work, is how do we start to tackle all of these decades, centuries of rules and expectations that society has for how people behave in community, and start to see which ones work, which ones don't work. How do we thrive? How do we bring more equity and equality in? How do we have diversity and also mindful exclusion out of some communities? Like, there's all these kind of things that we can talk about today, and I hope we will. But I think one of the big things is that we look at as we start to say, okay, am I in a community that's toxic? Am I in a community that doesn't feel good? Am I in a community that doesn't leverage me, that raises me up, that nourishes me? And it's okay to leave those communities that don't. Whether that's a small friend group, a large neighborhood.
And it's really okay to change your mind about what is nourishing. At any point in time, what serves you now is not always going to be what serves you later. So it's really important to be able to stay flexible yourself about those things.
Yeah, because maybe the community is not toxic, but maybe it just doesn't give you what you need right now. And that's okay. I've been on my community board, my community neighborhood board, and then I was like, this is not for me. I don't have time for this. It's not, I can't contribute. So I'm going to walk away. And it wasn't the board's fault. It's not the neighborhood's fault. It's just that I got other stuff I'm focusing on.
Also, next door is kind of a cesspool. I mean,
I haven't been on it. I've heard, but I don't think I want to go on it. I run a neighborhood Facebook group. That's probably enough.
that's probably more than enough. I'm getting ready to start this spring some local neurodivergent support groups because there's nothing here. There's some small groups associated with NAMI, which isn't terrible, but neurodivergence isn't quite mental health in the same way.
Yeah.
There is autism support groups, but they're all run by Autism Speaks. And so I'm sitting here going, I have nothing really locally. And I put out a few feelers. If I put together something, will you come? And people were like, yes, we will come. So now I'm building it. And there's really something if you can't find it, build it. And It's
Maybe. Yeah.
much, maybe, but it is like, it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it, I don't think.
Yeah. And okay, so I say maybe, and maybe I should explain why I say that. So I see this all the time where it's like people are like, and we saw this definitely when like Facebook groups started to become a thing online, is that it was like, I don't like the way that person's running a Facebook group. I'm going to create my own and it's going to be better. And it's like, and then you spend all your time trying to convince people that it's better and trying to market and get people in, instead of being a leader within a community that's already existing. Like, if you don't like your neighborhood, but you still want to live in your house, you can't just go and, well, okay, I should say I did this. I didn't like the neighborhood group. We had some racism go down and the leader was not prepared. She's not available. And so we ended up creating a new group. And it's okay, except we now have two groups that are the same thing. So then you run into this, like, which one's better? Which one should people join? Do they join both? What kind of level of information do they get? And also, starting your own group is a metric crap ton. I put imperial and metric in one, a whole metric ton of work.
Right.
And people don't realize that. And I'll say to you, like, if you think you're going to create a half-ass community, don't. Because you can do a lot of trauma doing that. Community work is a lot of work. Community support is a lot of work. Being in community with people, as much as we talk about it being nourishing and there for you when you have a bad day, it's work. And you have to have that reciprocity in place for all of the members, not just the people who want to lead a community, but all of the members have to know what the reciprocity rules are. Otherwise, you can create a whole bunch of trauma.
And so, what do people do when they don't want to lead, know better than to start something new and something doesn't exist? How do you find spaces where there are none?
I mean, I don't know. Is this like the rule of, what is that? The rule 47 or something on the internet, where if you can think of it, there's a meme for it, or like, if you can think of it, there's a porn segment of it. If you can think of it, is there a community for it? I don't know. I guess it's like, how hard do you want to look? Right. I mean, I have seen some people who are like, oh my gosh, the catalyst, what a great idea. And then the next week they go make their own. And I'm like, okay, great, awesome. We need more. I can't serve 7 billion people in the world. But also, I'm like, why didn't you come in and like see what you could do here? Right. And then branch out. Right. And it's an interesting question. So part of it is people like, oh, that's not for me. I can do something different, or I want to do something different. I'm always going to say, like, how hard did you look to see if something was there? And I don't want to like discount you and your like the neurodivergent stuff, but also, does it make sense to have, like, there's mindful exclusion. So does it make sense to have something with neurodiversity, or does it make sense to have neurodiversity in other groups and making it a priority, or making it a forefront, or making it at least like in the same hierarchy as all the other accessibility needs? And this is probably my biggest criticism with a lot of groups, is we don't have equity. We don't have, there's always a hierarchy of needs in groups, in communities. And so part of it is like, how do you bring some of these things into forefront? I think when you look at like neurodiversity, we both know Faith Clark, she talks about neurovariance, right? Everybody has these little quirks. Everybody has these needs. It's just varying degrees, or sometimes you need this and I need this. What if we start creating conversation and communication methods and acknowledging that someone else might need different needs in the existing communities we are in? Do we always need to create one that is a microcosm?
Right. And I think it becomes a problem when there are no spaces for us, right? I don't think it's about, this is not exactly where I expected this conversation to go, and
Yeah.
it feels so like valuable, because there is so much splitting of everyone
Mhm.
wanting to be in charge of their thing
Mhm.
that we get people in little pods of isolation
Mhm.
and no community.
Mhm.
So how does one go about integrating into something that doesn't exist?
So I think we have to look at, I mean, this is, I think, one of the tenets of building a good community is what's our shared connection? So, Briar, what would you say yours and my shared connection that we have of why we get along so well together? Other
I
than
mean,
cat,
there's cats, well, and potatoes. Like,
potatoes.
I
Yep.
mean, memes, uh, mutual disinterest in certain individuals and ways of doing business. Like,
I just got it. I was like, who? What? Oh, I got it. I
oh,
got it.
oh, 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 I
Okay.
got it. I
Okay.
got it. Right.
Okay. So then but what about what differs? What do we differ? What are some things that you and I do not
Hmm.
share?
I I am much more inclined to put something out into the world live with all of its flaws, whereas in the Catalyst we call her Marisa the most has to do everything. It's
Yeah.
so pretty. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful, but it
Yep.
has to be perfect before she'll put it out into the world,
Yep. I work
right?
it to
Like
death. Yep.
you do work it to death and we love you for it. I mean,
Yep.
that's not a fault. That's just the way that you put things out into the world. And I would
Yeah.
never get
Yeah.
anything done if I had to do it that way. It's
Yeah.
got to be live and here we are
We
for
are.
all the world to see our flaws and that's what works for me.
Yeah.
So I think there are beautiful places and spaces that you can build around similarities and differences too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, and you have kids. I don't. I'm the
Hmm.
mother of businesses. You're the mother of children.
Yes.
And there's these things like where we look at this. So it's like, okay, do I need, because you have kids and I don't have kids, and because I'm obsessed over the details, and you're just like, let's create something now. Do we need to create separate communities, or do we work together and we create a community that talks to both of those things? Right? And do we
Right.
have those shared experiences? Because I couldn't do what I do if I didn't know people with kids. I'm just going to say this. I can't do that because if I didn't recognize the challenges and the opportunities and the obstacles of having kids and running a business, I would be a pretty crappy strategist, right? Because I'd be like, how
Yes.
come you can't get this done? Like, and all this stuff. So like I need those perspectives. I need those experiences. If I was in a community with only people who don't have kids, like bleh, like that's boring, right? And so meanwhile, we're creating a community. Someone yesterday in the Catalyst was like, oh, there's kids voices. And it's like, yes, of course, because kids come in and they're hungry all the time. Or like their their iPads are constantly like, what's happened? It's broken, and if we shut that out because it was not a shared part of the community, because not everybody has kids and can understand that, I think we would be missing an incredible opportunity for perspective and learning. And also like just like just you just don't know who you might be missing because you felt like the divide was too great, or the differences. So there's a challenge we get, I think, in niching or creating too many of these little splinter communities, is that we miss this bigger experience. Now, sometimes it's too big, right? Like you got to,
Mhm.
30,000 people, how do I build connection? How do I find people? And that's where we start to maybe then niche down into little pockets, or we have subgroups, or we have little meetups. I think that's great. I just worry, if everybody creates their own little island, are we going to miss out on innovation? Are we going to miss out on helpful contrast? Are we going to miss out on healthy conflict? Like, are we
Yes.
forgetting how to have healthy conflict because we are creating all these little splinter communities?
Well, and I think nowhere is that more self-evident than social media, where you have the ability to silo your information
Yeah.
so easily,
Block,
and
block,
the
block, block.
algorithm, right, or the algorithm does it for you, right? We know that that's something that happens on TikTok. So it
Mhm.
really is important then to remain open to the possibility of difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're losing that a bit. And I've seen this, like, I mean, I have a lot of people on my friends list on social media who talk a lot about boundaries, and it's okay to just block people you don't like, and it's okay to unfriend. And I'm out here going, I really don't block that often. I really don't. Like, it has to be pretty extreme where I just have to like feel really unsafe around that person. But like, people disagree with me all the time. And I don't want them to know, because people say sometimes, like, how come you have that person still on your friends list? I'm like, oh, I love their debates. I love the way they come at problems. I love the way that they will talk about their position because it challenges me. It challenges me to go outside of that. And not everybody can do that, right?
There is almost nothing better to me than being able to refine my talking points in a debate with someone else. But you don't get that chance if you're not having the conversation at all in the first place.
Yeah, and I don't want a community, like, even when we look at, like, what we do in the Catalyst, I don't know about you and your community, but I want a community where everyone's like, "Yeah, Marisa, you did a good job." No, like, come and be like, this I had somebody this week that was like, "Your process sucks. Like, I can't get into this tool. I can't get into this tool. We have too many logins." I'm like, "Oh, heck yeah." And so I spent 3 days, rebuilt a whole entire singular community, and when I showed it to them, they were like, "Oh, I didn't mean to give you all this extra work." I'm like, are you kidding me? This is amazing now. Like, this is so much better for me. It's going to be so much better for everybody else coming in. You've given me great feedback, and then I could build to it. I could build so to make it better for everybody else. If I don't get that feedback, we're building a crappy piece, and we're thinking we're doing good, and it's like, no. And it's like, I want to be challenged. I want people to say, "Hey, this is how we can make it better." And I think this is what we need to start, encouraging more, not just in the business communities that we create, but our neighborhoods and our cities and our governments. Because if we don't encourage the ideas, if we don't encourage the feedback, if we don't encourage the critique, there's innovation's not going to happen. We don't innovate
Right.
out of, you know, contentment.
And we don't accept new things or change by force either. That's never led us historically to a place where we are happy being. So, like, it's important to stay open and available to possibility. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, I like this. We're building back resilience for discomfort of change. I think, oh man, I think you're so right. I mean, we are. I just see this. Like, I see the flounces happening. I see the shutting of the door. I see
Ugh.
the virtual door slams of people because they can't handle any kind of discomfort. Wow, right? Like, wow.
Right. And we're not cultivating the possibilities of those things either. So you are, I mean, I'm going to allow you to explicate your diagnoses for us. You are different largely. Would you explain to my folks in what way your brain works differently?
Well, I mean, I'm always a little, I'm always, I think I take a lot of things for granted, and then people are like, wow, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. It just is like, it just is. But I have been officially and formally and through the health system diagnosed as being autistic and have ADHD. I thought it was a late diagnosis, but apparently my parents knew about it as a kid, and it was just one of those things that we just didn't talk about. But it's a lot of things made sense after my therapist was like, "Hey, do you think we could maybe just explore this and see if we can get some explanation for why you are having challenges in the world?" And it's like, okay, so I do. And I mean, there's a bunch of things that go along with that come out of it. I don't. I was talking with a friend this morning. I don't know what jealousy feels like. I've been trying to. I've been asking a lot of people lately, like, what does jealousy feel like? What does jealousy look like? What is it? Because because people are like, don't you like care that so and so? I'm like, no. If they can do it better than me, like, let's go. Like, I'm always like, I don't know that feeling of going, oh no, someone's, or like they're doing it better, that coveting something. I'm like, can I do it? And I don't do shame well. I don't take shame. I'm good at kicking myself, being like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God, you should have known better or whatever. I'm good at that. But the whole, like, where someone's like, shame on you, I'm like, no, thank you. But thank you for the offer. And when people come in and if they make mistakes, I'm just like, yeah, that's okay. We could like, let's fix it. So there's a bunch of like things where I might come at it that my community building might be a little different than someone else's.
As someone who is autistic and ADHD, how do you find community when it doesn't feel accommodating?
So that's a very good question. And it depends. It depends how much I want, need, or desire the community, because I'm also very good at being like, and that's not everybody, right? Some people really want to be a part of a community, so they will do all the things and they will advocate, or they will. I am always like, there's other things to do. So part of it is that I always have something else to do. There's something else to do. But I've also built several communities. I don't feel like one community should satisfy all of my needs. Is there like a poly community, poly amory? I don't know. We're have to come up with like a poly communal. And I don't want all communities to satisfy all of my needs. I like having multiple sources of support and thriving. And I don't think it's fair when I make, and that goes for personal relationships, that goes for larger community relationships. It's like, we can't do it all. Like, we can't always do it all, and I think that's okay. So that's where I look at, if I'm not getting it, if I'm not getting it from you, I'm going to go get it from someone else, is, basically that what I look at. So I'm also maybe a bit different than that. However, if I see that there's an opportunity and there's other people that need something that I've been advocating for, so like something as simple as like captions on a video, or maybe we need to change the resolution of something, like those kind of things, like, let's talk about it. Let's create that conversation. And again, let's make sure everybody in the room is accommodated, not just making a change for one group of people and then it doesn't work for others.
And I think that's really important, that we recognize that if we ourselves cannot be all the things, other people cannot be all the things for us either.
Yeah.
So how do you go about like siloing people off or determining who's good for a thing?
Mindful exclusion. Yeah. Yeah. So like, I'll give an example of what we're doing in the Catalyst. So we know that some folks have come in through the Catalyst and they're more of we'll say a junior stage of their business, or they're maybe just starting out. It can be super overwhelming and really mind numbing to be in the middle of a conversation with other people where they're talking about technology you haven't even thought of yet, because you're still building the website. We're talking about sub funnels and targeted lists and tags and all this fun stuff that is like amazing, but it sounds a lot, right? And then we could end up up stifling people as opposed to challenging people because it feels like it's just too much. So we're creating a new to business cohort, and it's where you start from the beginning, and everybody starts from the beginning. Now we have some members who have been in business for 4 or 5 years. They're like, hey, can I come in and audit those new to business because I'm worried I've missed something. It's like, absolutely, come in and make that decision for yourself. But we're not forcing people to have to go through those levels. I think it's breaking down some of these barriers. We look at like a swimming pool, having adult learn to swim is just as important as having kid learn to swim. If we ignore the fact that we think, oh, maybe they should have learned how to swim at this point in their life, we miss that opportunity for people to opt in and get that access to support. There's an interesting, we talk about like staying in your own lane and all that kind of stuff too. I think part of what we're trying to do too in the Catalyst is we're trying to say, okay, Briar's really good at this, so let's enable Briar to be a leader in the community. Darcy's really good at content writing. Let's enable Darcy to take on content writing. You know what I mean? And part of that too is that letting other people lead. So we don't all have to be if you started the community, you don't have to be the hinge. You've heard me say this a lot. I'm like, I don't want to be the hinge. This community needs to grow without me. And it needs to be led by a bunch of people. And I think that's an interesting point when you started a community. When do you let others lead? When do you know? When do you know to let others lead?
Immediately. Like, for me, it's really interesting to me because I am not a quick start in terms of the way that I do things.
Right.
But I am a quick start when it comes to my attention span for long-term development. Like, I really want to build something and then leave in 3 to 6 months. So for
You're a
me,
starter.
then,
Yeah.
I am. I like to start the thing. And so I am at the very beginning of things, picking out the people who I see within my community who I can say, hey, do you want to do this? Hey, does this interest you? Hey,
Yeah.
can I hand this off to you? It's why everything that I build we were talking about Faith, and I had a call with Faith earlier because I'm getting her to do one of my podcasts. Everything I build is so communal in the way that I'll take this piece of the structure, I'll build the framework,
Yeah.
and then eventually I don't want to be right. I'll manage it, but this isn't mine. I'm building it for y'all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how would you like to take ownership of this? What can it bring for you?
Yeah.
And I think that for me, then, finding communities where I can plug the gaps is really important to me. If I enter a well-established community, the first thing I'm looking for is what do we not have here that I can fill? Rather than how do I go and create my own that's better. That's not interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, again, building a community is a lot of work. It's not for
Hmm.
everybody. I think it's interesting what you said. So it's like, looking around and seeing who can do what. I agree with that. I don't want, like, I just don't want it. And we always joke, like, people are always like, you're a leader. I'm like, I'm a reluctant leader. I'm the person that's like, hey, who else wants this? Put hot potato, but the thing is if I got the potato in my hand, I'm gonna hold it because I don't like letting people down. I don't like, I like the idea of a community. but I also love being supported myself. It is something that I really thrive, and I know I thrive in. When I have the right level of support and nourishment, I can do cool stuff. It was interesting this week. I might have overpromised myself a little bit, and you know that I don't like putting stuff out unless it's perfect. Members of the community came together and they're like, I'm going to take this day, and we're gonna run moderated co-working, or we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And I mean, that part of that support, that stepping forward of the community members allows me to do cool stuff that they still benefit in, right? So they aren't completely dependent on me. I had someone said, do you want to look at this post before I put it up? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you are the leader of yourself, you're the leader of your brand, go for it. Like, I need to trust in them that they've got my back, that they've got the community's back, but they're also going to support themselves. I was talking about the new business cohort. So actually, let's just talk about this. Creating community while still taking care of yourself. Okay, so we're all the leaders of one, and then we are sometimes the leaders of some, but most of the time we are the leader. All the time we're the leader of one, and that's ourselves. So we're building a new business cohort, and we have somebody who's leading it, not me. Someone else is leading it. They're really passionate about people who are new to business. And one of the things I said was, when you're building this inside the community, I want you to also build this for yourself, because if the community was to go away tomorrow, we need you to be self-sufficient. Like, we need you to be able to quickly and easily keep it going, because your family and you are just as important. So one of these things that we need to look at is, like, if we go all in on that community and the community all of a sudden dissipates for whatever reason, are you able to still be supported? Are you still able to take what you put into that community, put it into another community, or create your own community? And I think this is something we need to talk more about too with communities, is like codependency and like, the approval process and the validation we get. Is how can we take what we learn about ourselves in community and apply that to us when we're not in community, and apply it to other communities we're in?
So this leads me to an interesting place. I have a client who is a young college student
Yep.
who has not had an easy time finding or building communities. And they are a bit mystified by this process, because in high school, it's so regimented, right? You're stuck with your peers. You have this whole, I mean, it may not be great. Let's be very clear. It may not be great, but it is, structured. To then go away to college, and then it's a free for all. It's, how do you even go about identifying your people?
I mean, I don't know. This is I haven't figured it out yet. I'm 44 years old. I totally missed my mouth when I drank. That's why I was laughing during, you just kept talking, and I was like, I can't even drink a pop, Briar. How am I supposed to know who my people are? Like, I haven't even figured this out yet. I don't know where my body exists. It's one of my things being autistic. I don't know where my body is. So people ask us also, like how do you put do you put an application form, and do you put on, and we don't right now, because but I have refunded people before they've even gotten into the community, because I could tell by their Facebook posts that they would not have a good time with what we have already curated. Do I want to exclude people based on some very external factors all the time? No, because sometimes opposites are the best thing for us. And I have friends and loves in my life who we should not get along. People are like, how is this possible for you to be in community with this person? And I'm like, we laugh louder because we both know that we both respect that we have different opinions. So any of those kind of external factors, I waver at. I know other people are like, nope, I don't even bother having those people on my friends list or be in the same room with them and all that kind of stuff. And again, I still think I'm a bit of a contrarian. I'm just like, well, what are we missing, right? College is an interesting thing because, or any kind of like university because you have two focuses. One, you're there to learn, you're there to get a degree, or you're there to like get some sort of thing out of it. But you also are in community with a whole bunch of other people who may not have the same outcome as you. Some people go to school because they think they have to. Some people go to school with a purpose to get another part of education. Some people go to school to get a job right away. Like, so you have to kind of know what is going to support you. And it might be a different purpose, but does it still support your purpose? Again, this comes back to we're the leader of one. If you're going to be in community, you got to know that it's supporting you still to achieve your goal. I think the saddest thing is when we give up our goals or give up our ideas or give up our beliefs because someone else had a stronger one than we did. Sometimes it's good to support other people's. It's again, this is a thing that we have to learn in life is when do we, you're running for president. When do you know to give up the race and support the other candidate? These are these kind of ongoing questions. I don't know if I have an answer. I'd be happy if anyone's listening, please do put in the comments because I'm curious. How do you know that you're in the right community? How do you know what are the things that feel right to you?
Yeah, I feel like that's so deeply personal. And when you are younger, like it can be a complete and total mystery. It
Yep.
is, I make friends now over really small and trivial things. And if the rest of our lives are incompatible, it doesn't matter because there's this one thing, right? Like,
I have made friends from people on the bus. Like we literally get on at the same stop or around the same stop. And I've turned and was like, hello, would you like to be my friend? Check yes or no. And then they have that option to say yes or no, just because based on that, they saw me every day. So Margot says feeling supported by community members fills my heart. Yeah, support, right? Like it's like knowing, I think knowing if you stumble, you're not immediately kicked out. Knowing it's a sense of belonging, right? It's safety and belonging. So it's knowing that if you're having a bad day, you're not going to get love and lighted off the planet, like if you're having, or if you're doing really good, right? We want to know that we can come in and celebrate and somebody else doesn't, eat us because they're feeling a certain way about our success versus theirs.
I very deliberately build in. So I'm doing a 1 week or a 1 month group program right now. And next week, all of our group calls are focused on celebration because it's such a difficult thing to do socially, communally, to celebrate our wins. I don't know when or how that became hard. Maybe it's never been easy, but we shouldn't have to hide the wins or the bad days. We shouldn't have to avoid the actual stuff of our life. And if we can't share that with the people who we are in community with, then they are not the right people to have in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we talked about a bit at the beginning. It's like I don't think a community should be your whole thing. Like, like they can't always support, but at the same time, if I'm in a business community and I can't talk about how being autistic has impacted my business, or because other people feel like I'm being negative or I'm leading with my disability, or I've heard it all. right? And I mean, we saw I was a part of a major business community that broke down because people weren't allowed to be Black and have a business, and have issues that were directly impacting Black people. And you had people who are like, oh, you shouldn't bring color into business. What? How do you take away something that is a part of somebody's life who things happen because of it? No, we can't do that. We can't. So it's the picking. There's mindful exclusion, but then there's that picking and choosing because we don't like to be uncomfortable. Well,
Mm.
I think that's an interesting perspective to bring into community. Like, are we being mindfully exclusive or for the good of people, or are we just being beaches?
Hmm. So, okay. What structures do you have in place that allow you to know whether or not a community or a relationship is good over time? Because I think, especially when you are autistic, there's that people pleasing that kicks in, right?
Yeah.
And
Or
there
the complete
comes a place,
ignorate, like, of signs, like, you don't know the signs and
right?
signals until they
Right.
are too
And
big.
like
Yeah.
I'm really, I'll be honest. I miss red flags a lot. Like, and it'll happen in business relationships, it'll happen in
Yep.
personal relationships, and I'll go, I should have seen that coming.
Yep.
But in fact, I am autistic and I don't see that shit coming.
Yeah.
So, how do you build guardrails?
Yeah, so I try to always keep it safe, for people to give me feedback. First of all, it's like I try to come at it. If somebody gives me feedback, I try not to be too defensive. I try not to be like, but sometimes it hurts, and you're just like, bleh. But I try to keep it, so that it's safe for feedback, so that people can come to me before it gets bigger. So I have a rule for being friends with me, and it's something that I have to create in the community as well. Is that if I do something personally, and this goes for anybody in the community, if somebody does something that makes you uncomfortable, makes you feel unsafe, you can't let it fester. So it's like, can you come to us? We've created some avenues, like we have a community code of conduct. We have, if somebody makes you uncomfortable, like, here's the steps on what you can do to get that. And if it's me, how do we do it? How do we do that? So those are really clear. And I think those are really important in any community, whether it's your neighborhood group or, a business group, or your audience, is how do you make it easy for people to give you feedback? But on the other side is, it's like, you can't let it fester. And the reason why I say that you can't let it fester is because sometimes people say things and it's just like they're distracted, they've got trauma happening, they got conflict happening, they're stressed, they haven't slept in 3 days, and crap falls out of our mouth. Okay? It didn't mean what it wasn't as big, or it didn't mean, or it was something that could be corrected. But what happens is, when you let it fester, when you think about it and you don't talk to that person, you don't talk to anyone, and it fester, your brain fills in all the cracks of things you don't know, based on your past experience, your personal bias, and what you know to be true. And that can create an impenetrable barrier to communication, because when you do go to talk to that person about what happened, you can't listen to the other person either. So not only can you not maybe also communicate what the hurt was to them, so they're like, what happened, because they don't even remember it happened, like a week. I said that, like, and I've said that. I'm like, I've said that, like, shit, like, that was ridiculous. Like, why would I say that? Things fall out of my mouth all the time because I've got 10 different conversations. Sometimes it's like pop culture references fall out of my mouth and I don't even know what's happening. And if it hurts somebody, I want to know. So one, so I can acknowledge it, like, I can't believe I said that. Two, here's how I'll do better. Three, what do you need in order for us to be, like, friends again, if we can be friends again? Those things, those conversations happen. But if so much cement has been filled in to the story, it's hard to move, and it's really hard to build a community on that. So there has to be these kind of rules. And we've had people in the community and myself say out of pocket stuff. It's just like, whoops, we don't have a frame of reference. Something means something differently in our country than it does your country. I mean, we all know about the fanny pack. Okay.
And I think that there's something here about relationships are an action.
And
They're
choice.
not,
A choice.
yes.
Yeah. They're a choice
You,
we make all the
you,
time.
right, regularly, consistently, all of the time. And it's worth figuring out what that looks like, but you have to do it in real time and you have to do it with other people. You cannot tell these stories in your head or it will structurally damage the actual interpersonal relationship that you are trying to have with this other person.
Yeah, and I've had people create incredible villain origin stories about me, and I'm like, "That's amazing. If I was like that, my life would be pretty fun." But no, my life isn't like that, and I don't have, or I've had to say to people like, "I don't care about you enough to want to do that." And that's awkward too, right? Because it's just like you have to be like, "Wow, like that's a lot. That's a really good story. We should write this down and write a book together. Do you want to do you want to write a novel?" Like, and I've said that, and people are like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, I got so much stuff happening in my in my brain that I don't have the time to think that about you. And I'm appalled that my words or my actions indicated that. But I couldn't. It would kill me if I was actually like that. And I think, when people have, they've seen that, they're just like, okay, right? But if they can't do that, if we can't come together in real time, if we can't do that, like I said, sometimes I can't do it either, right? I'm just like, oh, and if they can't do that, that's okay. Like we've ended friendships on people who are like, I can't. I need like 3 to 5 days to process something. I'm like, no problem. We're probably just not like we'll end it here, and that's okay. And that can be shocking for people too, right? Because again, relationships are a choice, they're reciprocal. So whether we're in a large community or not, we each have to make that decision about whether we can do that or not. Right?
And that's not to say that processing time isn't important or something that you can ask for. It's that relationship and community is reciprocal. So
Yes.
we both have to agree on these terms. Every
Yes.
time you and I have a conversation, have an argument, whatever it looks like, we're agreeing on the terms of engagement at that point in time, which
Yes.
then enables us both to walk away at any time if it no longer feels safe or comfortable,
Yes.
and also is the honor code of interaction, right?
Yes.
Because I've said I am in community with you, and these are the standards which I wish to be treated and therefore shall treat you.
Yes. I'm in a community where the rules are you have to there's a checklist. Have I had a nap? Have I had something to eat? Have I had a glass of water before I can talk about a conflict with somebody else? And when I got that, I was like, ha ha ha. Oh, wait, that's really good. Because it's addressing like our basic human needs and recognizing that we're not all perfect human beings operating in a completely operational meat sack, right? So it's like, okay, let's in the basic of things, have we had a nap? Have we had water? Have we had something good to eat? Okay, now we take a look at and we say, okay, and I try to say this too, and when people ask me my opinion in the community or just I try to be fully like, here's my biases. Okay. When I come into this conversation, you need to know that I've already done this, this, and this, or I've experienced this and this. So while I want to hear you, please know that anything I give you in feedback has these biases shadowed. And that can throw people off too, right? They're like, but I just want your opinion. I'm like, I need you to know that my opinion isn't the only truth out there because of experiences that I've had that I'm fully recognizing in my conversation with you. This is the autistic part. I need you to
Right.
know all of
We
these
should
things.
all be lawyers.
I need you to know all of these nuances before we come into this conversation. Now, okay, you know it, let's go, right? I wish it could always be like that. Here's my rider, right? I need green M&Ms, and I don't think green M&Ms exist. Well, maybe they do. Green M&Ms, and I also need you to know that one time in grade 4, I had a conflict with somebody, and I haven't quite finished processing it yet. 30 years later. And then people are like, oh, that makes sense. Here's your green M&Ms. And here's what I'm going to do to not make it like it happened in grade 4. Wouldn't that be amazing?
So I think it can work like that. Now,
Okay.
it's
I would love
hard.
it too. Yeah.
And I do have, my ops manager is here, and we very much have a relationship where we can say, no, that's not working for me like that. I need this instead. And I can say, well, I understand where you're coming from. This is why I have delivered it in this way. How do we work together to reach a place where we can both be happy with the outcome? And it does take negotiation sometimes. I think, man, what I'm walking away with here that is just so fundamental is that you have to be able to sit in that discomfort of not being sure about the answer, and then hope that you can reach a place of agreement together. And that feels very scary to a lot of us.
Especially when we're in community that we love. So if you and I are in this amazing community and we both love it, and now we realize that you and I are never going to have a good time together, because that's also going to happen. Do either of us have to leave the entire community because we are never going to have a good time together? Oh, that's hard, right? Because everybody knows what happened because it's a community and nothing stays private in a community. So then it's like you always see one person kind of drift away, or maybe both people drift away, or it's just it can be uncomfortable for a lot of people. So we also have to get used to the fact that sometimes people don't get along, but it doesn't kill the community. So how do we get to a place in our own, again, we're the leaders of ourselves, where if you and I don't get along, I don't have to tear you down. Like we just don't get along. Right? Maybe we're on different committees, and we know that sometimes we're going to feel uncomfortable or unsafe around each other, but we both acknowledge that, and maybe it's okay. Right? And that can be a really hard step to go, and a really hard thing as leaders to foster, because it's like, oh man, I love these two members, but they hate each other. So what I did was I built more rooms, right? We've got a virtual world. We've got more rooms. So if you don't want to work in that co-working room with that person, you go in another room.
And the community supports that. Like, it's structurally designed to enable us to feel that freedom to explore.
Equity, right? So it's like, it's another agreement that everybody has, that we're not going to pick sides. We're not going to sit at one person's table and not the other, or whatever. We're going to recognize that conflict can exist in community and doesn't always get resolved.
Okay. So we've talked about finding communities. We've talked about why you should build or should not build communities. Let's talk about what it looks like to segment out the needs analysis, right? How do I go about assessing what it is that I need and what's going to be the right group for that?
So this is interesting. So when you have a disability or an accessibility need, I think there's a decision in ourselves whether we're like, this is important, I need this. Like, it's one thing to be like, I'm in a wheelchair and I need your sidewalks to be shoveled so that I can get in your front door. That's a definite. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, right? And then there's a thing where some people ask me, because I have a hearing problem. I have to go. Now that I've had the AirPods Pro, I realize that I have to go get a hearing aid. I have to stop avoiding it. I should have had it as a kid. I was like, no, I don't want, because I didn't want to be more weird than I already was. So people say to me, what do you do when you're in an audio community? And my community is largely an audio. I'm like, oh, I've had apps for years. You know, this is the AI discussion too, because a lot of people are like, AI, like it's a new thing. And I'm like, for some of us, we've had to have AI to exist in the world. I'll just say that out, because guess what? Those kind of transcription services like that's AI. It's guessing what we're saying and trying to pre-fill it. All of that is built on AI. We need it. So for the last like decade or so that I've been online really heavily for business, I've sought out tools that make accessibility possible for me. And I've done it for myself because it's not always possible for the communities I'm in to be completely accessible for myself. And I say that because of cost. I say that because of resources. I say that as like, I love a community run by one person and they just don't have the ability to caption everything so that I can follow it. So then what do I do in order to make it accessible for myself? Well, I do a little bit of self-advocacy. And I would say disabled persons and neurodivergent, like it's pretty much on us, right? Because nobody's going, oh my God, I built you a ramp. Isn't this like, without even thinking? No, they build the ramp after the person who with the wheelchair shows up and says, how do I get in your front door? Like, it's always like that, right? We had a brand new building here. I went to a community event on business licensing, which I am pretty active in the community for business. Anyways, we go to this big charrette and I look, there's a person who brand new building, only 2 weeks old. They didn't build the doors wide enough for a wheelchair. So we had to transfer somebody. I had to help somebody, a stranger. So that now they're relying on somebody who they don't know, help them transfer to a chair. And then I basically, MacGyvered their wheelchair through the door with, and then transfer them back after the meeting had started, because the meeting organizer couldn't even address the fact that how horrifying this could be for somebody. Okay. So those are those things, right? We thought about it. Like, how do we not have a door that is wide enough for wheelchair users to access? So anyways, these things happen after that, but it's like, there's a fine line between being able to just say, I can do it myself. And then, hey, is there enough people that we can all work together? There is a time in a community too where we expect a community to provide for us. And there's a time when we actually have to be the providers for the community. So for me to come in and say, hey, captions are really awesome for me. Is there other people here who probably could use captions without it being completely obvious? Like that, you don't have to have a hearing aid to need captions. There's audio processing. There's just all of this. So there's soft speakers. There's all these, So there's this decision in a person has, whether they're the leader or the participant in a community, is when do we need to do it for ourselves, for other people?
Yes.
When do we need to do it for other people and it's not for ourselves?
Required for other people, right?
Yeah. Right. So it's like, I'm not in a wheelchair. I don't need that door to be wide, but sometimes I don't know that my body's attached to my body. So I wander around in a meat suit that I have no idea actually how big or how small it is. So a wider door is really great for me because I probably can get myself through.
Listen, the number of times that I just clipped the door with my shoulder And it has nothing to do with the size of the meat
No,
sack that
you're like,
I occupy.
I
It's
know,
never mattered. I'll just
I know.
run into things.
Yeah, I
I
could be a size 2 and I could be a size 20, and it won't matter because I have no idea that this meat
right,
suit is my own, right? And that's
right.
that's something in here, right? So I look at it and I go, okay, I probably am going to need a wider door because I got a depth perception. Who else needs this too? And how do we make sure that we build it for all of their needs,
Mm-hmm.
not just the immediately obvious? So you asked, how do I know when a community needs to build accessibility for me? I think we should always be evaluating the tools, the access points, the surroundings, the environment, the interactions, and going, is this still working for everybody? Are there people out there that we would like to invite into this community, and how do we make it accessible and equitable for them too, because they're valuable and we want to have them in here creating with us? It's ongoing. It has to be. You can't be content. So where you say, like, I'm a perfectionist, I like to go perfect. I do throw out stuff. We created the callus. I had no idea what I was like. Hey guys, do you want to get together and create some sort of like
I remember that
co-working
launch.
community, right? Like, I'm just like, hey guys, no idea what it's going to look like. And then 80 people were like, this sounds amazing. Here, have some money and see what we built. And then we built it. And like a year later, is it anything like what I thought it was? Oh, heck no. Is it going to
It
be the
doesn't
same
even
a
have the
year?
same name.
It doesn't even have the same name. No, it's well, although funny, it's like the roots were there. I called people cattle, anyways. But is it going to be the same in 3 to 5 years? I hope not. I hope not. I hope we have cooler technology. I hope we have more means of communication. I hope we have more means of connecting and collecting and co-creating. And I hope that people keep coming and saying, hey, this does not work for me. And I go, cool, let's see what we can build, and let's get more input from other people, because the one solution that I thought would work doesn't work for everybody. That's what I want to see. And I want people to be like, hey, I think we could do this. And I go, do you want to lead it? And they go, can I? Yeah, go for it. Let me know how it works out. I want more of that because I can't do it all.
I was talking just today to someone about how you help someone in your business take ownership of things, and that's by giving them something that is theirs to own. It's not actually that hard. The same is true in a community, and the more that we are allowed to feel like this piece belongs to us, the easier it is to feel like we actually have ownership over the whole, too. So I think when we're building our own individual personal satellites of communities and people,
Yeah.
how do we nurture ourselves and the communities at the same time? I think this is really important for autistic people in particular, because we burn out so quickly. We'll throw ourselves full force into this like weekly, daily, all the things because it's all available. And then 2 weeks later, we burn out and get sick for 6 weeks
Yeah.
because we don't have capacity.
Yeah.
How do you personally work with your capacity?
Well, I don't always get it right. I think having really good people who know me and who are comfortable and know when I have signs of burnout, when I don't notice. Um, I have a friend who messages me all the time, and she's like, "How many times have you peed today?" And I like, it sounds like a really gross question, but it's a really good indicator of both, have I drank enough water, and also have I just got up to move around. And so it's having people who know those temperature checks. Again, that's being in good community, having those things. One of the best things I did was actually I got the watch that now that I'm back in the watch wearing. I got rid of the phone, kind of looking at my phone, but It gives me alerts. It gives me alerts to move. But those kind of things are like this like vibrating reminder that my meat suit again exists and I'm not just this ball of energy moving through all of these things. I think what you said too is about giving people that responsibility. I don't have to lead all of it. I don't. I
Right.
don't have to do it. And it's being that comfortable of knowing it. I think it's knowing when you're about to burn out. It's knowing how to say no. That's something I'm not good at doing. I want to do all the things. I want to be just as awesome. I want to be, that mega, but I also have to realize that if I'm lying on the floor without my oxygen mask, I'm not going to be able to do any of it. I've started sleeping this year, and I know that sounds really strange, and we're only on January 27th, but I typically like to do things in the middle of the night. But the problem is that when I do things in the middle of the night, then I've only got 3 or 4 hours sleep, and then the next day I'm exhausted, and the next day I'm exhausted, and it's never quite a catch up. I've started napping in the middle of the day. And I do that unapologetically. I do it while I'm at work in the co-working room. People always laugh and they're like, when do you get sleep? I'm like, well, when no one's asking me a question in the co-working room, I just sort of turn the volume up on my laptop and then I fall asleep. It's a little bit of chat roulette. Could be 4 minutes, could be 40 minutes, could be 4 hours, but it's letting my body have that fuel. And this is something like at the age of 44 that I'm just learning. And I'm going to say that really openly is like letting myself be refreshed. So I'm eating good food. I'm eating more fruits and vegetables. And I'm hoping that the act of me doing that is also reflected in the nourishment I'm bringing into my communities. Right? So I'm encouraging people to rest. I'm encouraging people to say no. I'm encouraging people not to do all the things because it has to get done and no one else has volunteered. I'm encouraging people to take on something and then say, I can't do this. Because that's a huge thing too. We have these obligations and then we burn ourselves out instead of just saying, wow, I said yes to this and I am not going to get this done. I'm hoping that by modeling that in myself, I'm modeling that in the community, that it gives people permission to do that. Because we just make up this stuff. All these deadlines, yes, bills need to be paid, but all that's made up too. And I think once we start to say to even the bank, like, do you know this is a made up date when you set what's the difference between me getting it in on the 15th and the 17th? And you know what? When you have that conversation, they're like, nothing, we'll move it to the 17th. They do that. And you're like, oh, that wasn't as hard as I made it out in my head. Right? And so if we start having more of these conversations about these made up obligations and these made up requirements and expectations, I think it's going to start to build healthier people and build healthier communities. But someone has to try the conversation. Someone has to be willing to hear the conversation.
I think that's a good place to kind of tie it all in a bow. Executive dysfunction is something that we struggle with, right? And that's the self-care components are so, so hard.
Yeah.
What do you personally do? So obviously the watch. Is there like a keystone habit that you have that if you miss makes everything else go to hell?
I mean, definitely sleep. I'm not a great person when I'm snappy and I don't think as well. So that's why I've started to incorporate that. And like I said, I'm unapologetic now about my sleep. This has been an interesting 27 days. I made the decision to start on the first is like, I'm going to go to bed, even if it's not done. And as someone who likes to have everything perfect and have everything out there and have everything done at once, this is an ongoing struggle I have. And I think it's probably going to take the next 10 to 20 years to get it right. I'm hoping sometime around my late 60s, I will have this figured out. But I know I don't have it now. So I don't have any magic answer. But I will say to people, like, stop punishing yourself. Stop this self-flagellation of like, I'll start crying right now because it's like, it is a punishment. It's like, I didn't get all the things done today. So now I'm going to punish myself by not eating or not drinking water or not sleeping. And I don't know. And I've talked to other autistic people. We do this. I don't know why. And I don't know what's in our brain about this, but it's like, I have to punish myself further, which doesn't get me any ahead. Right? Yeah, Margot knows. Margot has known me for a bazillion years. You know this. You know I will stay up all night just to make sure that that market goes off, and then I don't sleep, and then, oh wow, right? But then if I go to bed, we started doing the markets, and I would go, I do these large scale events, and they're 2 days. I used to stay up all night in between, and then the Sunday I'm exhausted. No, my team and I go to bed at 8 o'clock. We get done at 6 o'clock. We go home, we have pizza, and then we all go to bed at 8 so that we can get up again at 7 or 6 o'clock in the next morning. And instead, so that we're not tired, so that we're not sore, so that we're not exhausted, so that we can actually do that. And yeah, Eleanor says, I do that. I've done that. And I think we keep coming back to it. If we can just sort of have this intentional moment where it's like, whoa, I am punishing myself for no good reason.
And I think that reflection is key. It's punishment in some way, shape, or form. Not taking care of ourselves is punishment for something that we have done wrong. And boy, that just cycles itself till eternity, right?
Yeah.
There's no getting out of that loop if you're going to just be beating yourself up forever and ever and ever.
It also becomes an excuse not to do cool stuff, right? Because you're like, I'm
Right.
tired all the time. That's why I don't do this. I'm tired all the time. That's why this doesn't happen. I wish I had more time. I wish I had more energy. I wish I had more resources. I would do this. And all that becomes is this endless cycle of not achieving what you want, of not being happy, of not finding joy. And and then it's a bigger source of punishment of doing it. And I think there's that meme. I think you've shared it. A few other people shared it, where it's like, hands up if you were the overachieving whatever child, and then now you're a burnt out in your 30s and 40s, right? Why? Right? Why is that so recognized by so many people? This is it. Made up expectations.
So for me, the solution continues to be to surround myself with people where that is not the thing that happens. And I think, so last year I really, really cut back on my gurus. There is, rather than finding more communities, my answer was to pull back and invest more deeply in the few that I was already involved in.
Yeah.
And it's become so much more enriching.
Ooh,
because I have to do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I can't just run away.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have to invest in building these relationships over the long term. And the catalyst has absolutely been a huge part of that for me. I would like for you to spend a couple of minutes and talk about the catalyst and what it is and how people can join, because I would like, if you struggle and need an online community, I really don't know that I have one that I would recommend more than the catalyst.
Oh, that's nice to hear. I'm going to say the same thing, even though I say it's mine, but it's not mine. It's ours. It's everybody's, because it is a community unlike I've ever been in. And I would say it's by design. It was by intention, but it wasn't by design. It did come as a community-led creation, and I am so thankful for it. So Create the Rules Catalyst is, you and I talk about this all the time. How do we describe the catalyst? Well, it's like, it's a virtual world. It's not like a Facebook group. It's not a Zoom. There's a live workroom that we come in as avatars and we sit our little butts down. And so we have the advantage of co-working and body doubling, which is amazing for folks with attention requirements. There's something weird about sitting, even if there's nobody else in that room, me sitting myself in that little circle is like, my body's like, bloop,
Absolutely.
okay.
This is work time, or it's
Yeah.
gossip time. It's one or the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. Or it's like, it's nourishment time. Like, right. We've got it. We've set it in there. It's a series of rooms and work rooms and collaboration rooms. And it's also, we have a community, a private text-based community, but what it is, I think at the core is we put nourishment first. So everything that we do, whether it is gossiping or, and we say gossiping, but we're just talking about the bropreneurs out in the world. We're like, woo, clutching our little metaphorical business pearls. But, it is we talk about what works, what doesn't work, what would make things even better. We come in and we share mistakes. We come in and share wins. We come in and say, I need help with this. And what I'm trying to do is build an environment where people don't have to, people learn how to ask for help. And we're going to have, Brian and I are going to do a series of podcasts on this coming up too. So if you're interested, let us know and we'll make sure you get a chance to listen to this. But it's relearning, unlearning, learning all of the ways that we ask for help. 2, it's knowing that you can be supported, right? Knowing that you can come in and it's the good, the bad, the ugly. And then the part of it is the done with you, right? So it's like, I said this yesterday. So sometimes one person needed help. They were on tech support with their website. Something was wrong. We were there with them in the room while they're on tech support, just so that they could be like, am I getting this wrong? Or what are they asking me? Just so that they had someone holding their hand. And that is what we're looking at building, is this community. But at the same time, we're looking at doing collaboration events. We've had pockets of niche, people who are in certain niches come together and create advocacy plans. They've created joint programs together. We're looking at creating, we have these live events coming because we want to help leverage members and get information out there. So it's communal marketing, right? It really is looking at all the aspects of a community and how we can come together and make it better for the people inside. We are focusing on the people inside. We are leveraging them. We're leveraging their strengths. We've got experts now, people who've been in the community for over a year, who are now leading their own sections of that community, and we're enabling that to make it easy for them to do that. They're getting paid to do that. Like, this is the thing, we're creating income. It is becoming a bit of a micro economy within there of just how we can build the right people in that are building this. And the idea is that Create the Rules and Create the Rules Catalyst becomes the place for business owners to come get real information. And I say that with that face because there's a lot of crap out there, right? That's what we're gossiping about. The audacity that someone would put out an ad, full well knowing that this isn't going to help the people that they're taking money from. We look at those kind of things in order to make our own businesses better. And when we talk about mindful exclusion, the other thing about this community is it isn't just all business B2B. We're not looking at, there's B2C in here. There's products, there's services, because we know that we're learning from each other.
Right. There's so much value in that, because when I ask for feedback, I am not talking to a group of my peers. I am often talking to people who have to say to me, what's neurodivergence? Even in the catalyst. So, like, there's really room to grow and develop your ideas, because you have to go back and really explain yourself. It's phenomenal.
And that's the thing. We always talk about, people say, how do we make a good landing page? And like, you're going to answer all of the objections someone has to buying from you. And I think that's something that we do really well in the Catalyst, is like, how do you have so much diversity that you get so many different perspectives? You start to see the world outside of your small little lens, and you start to see how maybe the stuff that you're putting out isn't obvious. It's obvious to you because you live in it. And then you get some really good feedback. At the same time, we laugh a lot. Like there's people come in and they're like, wow, I really screwed up. And we're like, tell us more. And we come at it from like a, man, I totally ran into that door too. Like, like, can you, or like, like there's just no, we don't want to let people dwell in it. Like, enjoy your failure, but also, how do we pick you up, piggyback you, feed you some soup, tuck you in for a nap? Like, it's all those kind of like virtual hugs that we're not
There
getting
are
elsewhere.
also limericks about keto cheesy soup and
Chicken. Yeah, keto
keto
cheesy chicken.
cheesy chicken. And like, why would you want a community without limericks about keto
Yeah,
cheesy chicken?
yeah. We honestly, it's I'm trying to look at building a community where you go when you need a laugh, when you need a hug, when you need jazz hands to celebrate what you did, but also someone to do it with you, because it's just that power of sitting down and going, I haven't written this email funnel in a week and it needs to be written. Okay, let's do it with you. Let's open up the mail, like let's open up MailerLite. Let's just dive in. Or I can't get this thing to work on my website. Okay, let me log in. I do this all the time. I'm like, let me just log in. Give me your username and password. I just log in and then I fix it and then they go on their way. So sometimes support is 5 minutes and sometimes support is 5 hours, and that's okay. That's what we're learning. That's what we're learning, is to take as much as you need to get filled up, to help others with the same kind of veracity and commitment that we have to being supported ourselves. And I think that's what we're working on. So we're looking for impact driven business owners. And we say impact because I'm looking for people who want to move the needle. I'm looking for people not just out there making money, like we love making money, but I'm looking for people who want to do something with that kind of, influence. I'm looking for people who are looking to create change in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in their governments. I'm looking at people who are looking at accessibility. I'm looking at people who are advocates. I'm looking for people who want to change the status quo, because that's what we can do in there. We can make sure that the risk takers are nourished so that when they go out into the world, they're not doing this by themselves. Occupational loneliness is a horrific way to go. That's where good ideas die, is in occupational loneliness. And you can have a team of 30 people and still experience occupational loneliness because it feels like no one gets you, or you feel like you can't be imperfect. When you're the leader of a company or a community or whatever, I try to model this. I come in and I'm like, guys, I'm not my best today. Man, I screwed up. Or wow, this was really an ugly job that I did. And I'm trying to do that because we can't be perfect all the time. That's what kills us, right? It's these made up expectations. And you can feel occupational when you've got to be perfect out there because it's going to impact your sales or whatever. I want the catalyst to be the place where you come in and you are comfortable being yourself, being imperfect, and still being loved and accepted for it.
And I think that is what makes community worthwhile, right? It's going and being with people who will love and accept you just as you are,
Yeah.
not as the version of yourself you wish you were,
Oof.
not as the version of yourself society tells you need to be, but who you actually truly are. And y'all, sometimes it may take time, but those people are out there for you. You just have to keep searching for them, keep looking for them. And I recognize that sometimes that feels like an insurmountable quest. So right now, I'm doing mini audits. If you need to know the next step, the one thing that you need to do to build a community or to get yourself in a place where you can find these resources, give me a call. If you need a community, and you know it's online, I encourage you to check out the Catalyst. I've already dropped the link in the chat. I will drop the link for audits. I deeply encourage you to explore the ways in which community can be enriching. And I know that feels hard and dangerous sometimes. But at the end of the day, none of us get to do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
here together all of the time. We have to do this with support. So I encourage you to go out and find it.
And your audits are a form of community. Like that is you, I mean, you can
Mhm.
have a community with two people, right? So it's them working with you to really be supported, be nourished, but also to like know what they're missing, because you can come in and kind of see what's not completely obvious, right? So they're leveraging that relationship, and there's a reciprocity there, in place when that happens. So I definitely encourage it. I mean, we've all seen the testimonials for Breyer's audits. Like they're definitely a hug that you can give yourself in your business. So I'm also encouraging everybody to go get that hug.
Like, it doesn't have to be hard. That's what I want you to walk away from here today. And I know it feels hard, and there have been times in my life where I just couldn't have imagined what the next step was. And I didn't ever take it by myself.
Yeah.
Find your people.
Find your people. Thanks everybody for listening to us.
This has been so good, y'all. Thank you for coming, Marisa. Thank you for doing this. I'm so glad you didn't use slides. We didn't need slides. This was amazing. And I will have a replay and transcript and audio feed up probably by Monday.
Okay.
And we'll have that to anyone who needs it. Thank you all so much for being here. And we will talk to you soon. Bye.